Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Terraforming Mars, the dice game from Stronghold Games. Terraforming Mars, the dice game is a 1 to 4 player tableau building game set in the Terraforming Mars universe in which players are going to try to earn points by helping terraform the planet. In the game, you're going to score points for a bunch of different things. There's going to be the standard 3 different aspects you're trying to be mindful of: raising the heat of the planet, raising the oxygen of the planet, and then getting water onto the planet. For each of those 3, whenever a player does so, they're going to earn 2 terraforming points, unless that thing has already been fully done, in which case they'll only earn a single terraform point. The game end is going to be triggered once 2 of the 3 metrics are fully done, at which point you'll go ahead and trigger endgame. Now you're going to earn points through a bunch of other things along the way. You'll earn points for cards with cards with points to them. You'll earn points for having the most symbols on your various cards of these. You're going to roll these at the beginning of the game, and these are going to be specific things you're going for as far as the different types of symbols you want to get on the things you're building. You're also going to earn points for these awards over here. You're going to have certain things, for example, having 13 dice, and you'll get 4 points for each of those awards throughout the course of the game. So a bunch of things you're going to try to earn points for, but let's talk about a typical turn. On a turn, there's a few possible things you can do, but the most common thing is you're going to be trying to take a standard action, taking a support action and a main action as listed on this player aid, and occasionally you'll be taking production turns where you try to get back a bunch of dice. We'll go through a few quick turns just showing you how things would play out, and then we'll go through production turn and then go from there into the actual review. So to that end, you're going to go ahead and have your hand of cards over here, and you're going to start by having your actual starting dice, which are 2 reds and 2 oranges and a red based on our starting corporation, and you will have some degree of choice over those before you begin. And then on your turn, you're going to take a support action and a main action. The 3 support actions you can take are adding any die to your pool, rolling it, giving up a die in order to turn a die to any face, or giving up a die in order to draw 2 cards. Now looking at my cards over here, I could try to go ahead and build some of these over here. I already have one of those. I already have some of those. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab, for my support action, I'm going to grab a red die and roll it, hoping for a C, did not get a C. I'll go ahead and do it again, hoping again. And that's done. And if you're wondering why I did that again, because one of the main actions you have is retaking a support action. You could retake a support action. The other main actions you have are playing a card, trading in 3 C for a temperature, trading in 3 water for an ocean, trading in 4 plants for a tree, trading in 3 cities for a city, and trading in 3 monies for 2 points. So that first turn didn't really go great for me, but my second turn is going to be a doozy. It's not going to be a doozy, but we'll see how it goes. For my second turn, I'm going to go ahead and let's see what we can do. We're going to go ahead and start by turning this die into, we'll turn this die into a earth symbol over here. That's going to be our first action. And then we're going to grab a C over here and roll it, hoping to get a C. We still did not get a C. Ironically, the C is the most common action. Every die face is going to have the most common, the less common, and then the rare. There's going to be 3 of these, 2 of these, and 1 of those on each face. So the fact that I haven't received a single C in 3 rolls, well, it's going to reflect in my review of the game when we get to the review part. But we go to my third turn of the game. I'm going to go ahead and not going to waste any time. I'm going to trade this in, which hurts me. I'm going to trade this in order to turn this into a C over here. And then I'm going to pay these 2 over here. And those 2 together are going to result in me giving up those dice, returning them to the pool, and being able to raise temperature, and then taking 2 points. I'm blue over here, so I'm going to take 2 points, and that is my turn. And meanwhile, along the way, by the way, other players are taking their turns. I'm just going round and around showing you how turns would play out. To that end, let's go to the next turn. I don't really love most of these cards, as I see anyways. I would love to build this card before we move to the next round. So let's see if we can go ahead and get one more, card in play before we take a refresh turn. And so for my next turn, I'm trying to build this card over here. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these and roll it. And I did not get what I want. I'm going to grab one of these and roll it, and I did not get what I want. Keep in mind, by the way, I'm trying to get the most common roll, and I am 6 rolls in and haven't gotten it once. We're going to keep trying. It's going to go my next turn, and we're going to once again draw one of these and roll it. Still did not get the most common roll. We're going to take one of these over here and roll it. And we finally got the most common roll. We're going to go to turn 5 or whatnot. We're going to turn these 2. This one I'm just going to give up. I'm going to give up these 2 in order to turn these 2 into those over there. So actually this I should still have in play. So we're going to go ahead and turn these. And now we're on to turn 7 or whatever it is. And we're finally going to go ahead and let's go ahead and grab one of these over here and roll it. We got that, and then we're going to go ahead and give this in order to be able to go ahead and build these, and that's going to give us another die later. Not now, it doesn't give anything now, but it will give things later. We finally go to our next turn, and on our next turn we're going to take a refresh turn, a production turn. When you take a production turn, you're going to go ahead and discard all dice greater than 3. We only have 3 dice, so we don't need to worry about that. We're also going to go ahead and discard as many cards as we want, and in this case, I don't know if we care about these cards that much. This one could be useful. I guess we'll keep this one. That one be useful. Let's get rid of the rest of these over here. So we're going to go ahead and discard those. Then we're going to draw up to 5. So we have new cards entering play, which we'll be able to hopefully use. And then we'll go ahead and unflip any blue cards. Blue cards are going to give you ongoing abilities you can use once per phase until you take a refresh turn. We don't have any of those, we don't have to worry. But what you're also going to do is on a production turn, you're going to go ahead and grab the dice that you have on your cards, regardless of what you already have in play. So for example, I'm taking these because of these two and that. You're going to roll them, and you're going to get a bunch of cards in a single turn to your tableau over there, which is going to make building this a drop easier. Because on my next turn, I'm not going to bother doing this over here. I'm not going to heavily focus on this. I'll go ahead and let's do this one over here. I'm going to go ahead for my next turn. We're going to take a red and roll it. We got a C finally. We're going to trade this, and this in. And we're going to go ahead and build this, which is again going to help us more when we're taking another production turn. That's basically what you're doing in the game. You're trying to build up your production. You're trying to build up your tableau. Throughout the course of the game, you're going to get more and more cards that will give you ongoing benefits, more dice or whatnot. You'll get a variety of blue cards in the game. So you're going to have tons of blue cards, if I can find them over here, which will give you different things. So over here, we can turn animal symbols into points every single turn. Well, not every turn. When you use it, you'll tap it, and you'll get it back untapped, doing a refresh turn. You can have decompressors over here. You can turn any green die into a tree symbol, plus getting a point. So you can go ahead and do that as a support action. But again, when you do that, you'll have to go ahead and tap it. Whenever you use them, there are going to be three kinds of actions: a main action, support action, and a free action. But in all cases, you need to tap them. Red cards are going to be instantaneous effects. So for example, this is going to let you build a tree and then gain a C over there for the monitor symbol for every adjacent tile. We have Deimos down, which is going to let you go ahead and pay a lot of things, but raise heat by 2, going 1, 2, and also getting a C out of that, and also going up 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then also lowering somebody else's die by a single green. So you can have a lot of these cards that are going to help you slightly marginally affect others. Whenever you cross two numbers over here, the 5 and the 12, you're going to look into the pool of bonus cards and then pick one of those bonus cards to add to your hand, which will give you different effects over here. Hey, look at this. We got 5 red dice we can roll right away. Over here, we can go ahead and perform a support action as a free action, which is very helpful for your engine, especially if you're set up for constant production turns. So you're trying to go ahead and build out Mars. You're placing terraforming. You're going to be placing water onto the board and getting various bonuses. So if you place this here, you'll go ahead and get 2 green dice to roll them. Similarly, you're going to be placing forest and city onto the board. Forests are going to be upgrading the oxygen, which is going to give you 2 points for that, and it's also worth a point whenever you place it next to a city. So if you place a forest next to a city, you get an additional point. You can be mindful of that. But additionally, when you place cities next to forests, you're going to get 2 points for each city, plus a point for every forest in play. So you're trying to slowly populate the board by placing those things out, while placing out the water, while upgrading the temperature, while upgrading the oxygen, while getting all 7 water into play, until eventually when 2 of those things are done, that will trigger game end. And that's basically how you play Terraforming Mars, the dice game, which means it's time for the review, starting off with ease of play, which the rulebook is fairly quick and to the point. This is not a very overly complicated rulebook, especially if you're familiar with Terraforming Mars. You'll be familiar with some of the core concepts in play, like the 3 victory condition kind of things. But even if you haven't played Terraforming Mars, if you've played any Tableau dice building game, this is basically going to be like, you have a page of setup, you have 2 or 3 pages of actual rules, and then you're down to solo play. It is not a overly complicated game to pick up and play, and plays in around 45 minutes. You could have games go faster if you're really charging through it, but I'd say somewhere in the 30 to 45 minute range, closer to that 45 minutes. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which starting with the tableau building. I really enjoy the tableau building aspect of things, trying to get more cards in play so you can take better production turns. If you have a few cards in play with give you dice and a few action cards in play, those blue cards, you can have a nice set where you go, action, 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 production turn, action, 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 production turn, and really start to get a feel for the game speeding up, for picking up your pace. The fact that you have a lot of variable goals. There are like 15 tiles in this, I don't know exactly how many, but it seems to be like around 15 tiles or so of these goals. That's going to give you different things to go for, as are the dice you roll, and trying to build buildings with those specific production icons gives you a slight degree of something to focus on in the game. And so there are some fun action cards to build around in the experience, and it plays relatively quickly. Relatively being the key word. It's still a 45-minute long game, but at least compared to other games in the Terraforming Mars universe, it is definitely going to be a quicker experience. And I appreciate the different paths to victory. I've seen players win the game by barely building any production at all and really just charging in for the win as soon as possible, trying to focus on those red cards, trying to get cards and dice in play as fast as possible, and not wasting time in production turns. And I've seen players win by focusing very heavily on getting an engine up and running and getting a nice cycle of production turns in play. And so I like the fact that you can approach the game differently. It's not like, it's not like you have to approach it one way or the other. It seems to be viable to try to take multiple pathways towards where you want to put your energy in the game. As far as what I don't like in the game, the cards are not nearly interesting enough. Across this entire deck of cards over here, most of these cards do not strike me as overly interesting. Compared and contrast to a Terraforming Mars with Ares Expedition, where I constantly feel like I want certain cards, these cards it was very, very, very easy to take a production turn and then discard 4 cards and loosely decide to keep 1. I rarely felt challenged by, ooh, this card is really good for my engine. There's cards that give you dice, and they have different costs in them, and those costs might be relevant for the scoring bonuses at the end of the game, but like, for the most part, the cards in this game don't feel overly interesting. The main interesting cards are going to be the action cards, which sometimes give you some ways to focus around building a complementary set of cards there. But overly, for a game that I think of Terraforming Mars as being a game that I'm so focused on the cards in my hand, this just feels like a giant stack of cards that could have been half as big, and I don't know if I would have cared because they're not distinguished enough. But more importantly for me, the bigger complaint I have is that way too much of the game is spent mitigating around that bad luck in the game. You are constantly rolling dice in this game. Constantly. I mean, this game has a support action and a main action, and yet I find that half the time the main action I take is just another support action. That feels wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know, but it feels like, I shouldn't say just me, the people I'm playing this game with are also doing things wrong because we are constantly taking support actions as main actions to just constantly roll dice and to throw dice back in and to mitigate around bad luck. We're not really, it doesn't feel like you're really building out a tableau nearly as much as you are take a die, roll it. Oh, wait, that's not a C. Look at that. That's the most rare resource. That's really helpful, except I don't have cards that need that, so I'm going to go ahead and have to give up that in order to be able to turn this into a C, because that's what I need right now. You will constantly and frequently be giving up other dice in order to be getting the rolls you need, which is frustrating enough when you're trying to get that rare roll. It's more frustrating when all you can do is roll against the odds and constantly not get what you want and have to give up bigger things for that. The game has way too many of your actions in the game are focused around dice mitigation, are focused around trying to spend actions to just get the faces that you need. It doesn't feel rewarding, it feels tedious. As far as what I can see others not liking, rolling better, this is like kind of briefly touched upon this already, but rolling better when what you need is worse is particularly frustrating. Having a roll where you manage to go ahead and get, like, you know, a bunch of those nucleus symbols, which are very hard to get. There's only one face that does that, and you'll roll 3 of them in a row. And you're like, that would be great if I had cards that need them, but I don't have cards that need them. And something you can do with that, you can't bank them. You still have to spend a resource to turn your good face into a bad face. That feels particularly disheartening. I wish there were more ways to cash in the rarer faces. Like, at least with cities, when you get that rare face, you're at least able to go ahead and turn it into an actual city. But the rest of these are very often the basic side of the die, which means you don't even have a standard way to cash them in. You have to have the cards, and if you don't, then you just don't. So it just goes hand in hand with the whole dice mitigation and how you're constantly trying to get the rolls you want in a fairly frustrating experience. Not the overall game, but fairly frustrating that much of your experience is focused on that. As far as final thoughts on Terraforming Mars, the dice game, I was optimistic about this when I first played it. And then I played it again, and then I played it again, and I don't mind the game. I don't mind the game. It's not the worst experience. If you want to play it, I'm happy to play it, but I am also not, I'm not appreciating this nearly as much as I would like to. And I'm very mindful of that, because I know when Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition came out, I know that I walked into that expecting Terraforming Mars, and I was disappointed, and my initial reaction to Ares Expedition was disappointment, and as time went on, I learned to appreciate it, and Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition to this day is still in my collection along with Terraforming Mars. I think both of them are excellent and have their own spots in my collection, although I still do prefer Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is a dice game. I don't see it making that comeback tour. I don't see it changing. For me right now, this is a 3 out of 5. And my biggest complaint isn't that it's not Terraforming Mars, isn't that it's not Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. My biggest complaint is that half my game is spent mitigating and adjusting around these dice. I don't find that a rewarding experience. I find that a tedious experience. I find that half of this game is tedious dice manipulation, and the other half is the fun things I'm here for. And that's just not good enough for me in terms of what the experience that I'm looking for. So for me, it's a 3 out of 5. I don't mind it. It's not bad. There's still enough elements at play that make this a game that if you want to sit down and play it, I will happily play it. But I don't think I'm sticking this out. And I don't think I feel the need to play this one again. And I'm very skeptical. Again, I'm mindful. I'm mindful of the fact that when I reviewed Ares Expedition, when that first came out, my initial reaction versus how things petered out over time, it went up over time. Maybe that'll happen here. But for right now, this is a 3 out of 5, and I don't know if I'm giving it the additional opportunity for it to grow. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, there's Ares Expedition. If you're looking for a shorter version of Terraforming Mars, I think Ares Expedition is the better way to go. And then if you're looking for a dice mitigation game that felt like it had elements of similarity here, although not really dice, but you'll see what I mean, Rolling Heights. I felt Rolling Heights very much gave me the feeling of trying to build up a pool of dice and benefit from that pool of dice, but in a much better, much more fun experience than what I got out of Terraforming Mars, the dice game. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.